It is well known, Mr. Speaker, that we as a government are celebrating our 4th anniversary. And I want on that note to say publicly through the Parliament, the fulcrum of democracy, a hearty thank you to all our citizens and residents who made it happen on the 16th of February 2015, when faced with a choice of the old and discredited order that was then, and a new vision, a new hope, a new way of governing, more inclusive in our approach to governance, more inclusive in our approach to the prosperity of the country, the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the electorate in particular chose the Team Unity administration. And I wish, therefore, as Prime Minister, to record our enduring gratitude to all the voters and to say thank you to them. We thank all who participated in the democratic process, for democracy in the political arena is about exercising choice. I want to extend my deep appreciation to the members of the Cabinet who, in my view, and in the view of the people of the country as determined in 2 widely publicized polls by independent party, none of them commissioned by my government, have indicated strong support for this administration. So I commend the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Sean Richards. He's away on official business, should be making his way back today for Parliament. I want to commend our Minister of Foreign Affairs, et al., for his very good work, outstanding work in expanding our diplomatic footprint and outreach, and taking our position in advocating for the best possible outcomes on behalf of St. Kitts and Nevis and SIDS in general. I want to place and record too my appreciation for the contribution of the Honourable Member for number 8 and Minister of Agriculture et al. For his work in agriculture, in fisheries, in the human settlement area, and indeed as a team member of this cabinet. Let me equally say how pleased I am with the work of the member for number 1, St. Christopher 1, and our Minister of Public Infrastructure. He too has done an exceptional job with our infrastructural development, from our airport to seaport, from our community roads. We have seen the evidence of the Team Unity government at work. The developments at the ferry terminal, the East Bus terminal, all speak well to his work and to his contribution to the government. I want to highlight the excellent performance of the member for number 4 and our Minister of Tourism et al., and to commend him, his staff, and the Cabinet in general for those successes. In tourism, we have year after year recorded improvements in tourist arrivals to our country, and we are going to see imminently a number of hotel projects come to official opening, which has been a remarkable show of the confidence of the investor in the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis, and their ability to work in a cooperative way with my administration. Let me commend the work of our Lady Minister, Senator Wendy Phipps, in health. And there has been outstanding work there too. We have built a brand new Mary Charles Hospital, which had become dysfunctional as a result of the neglect, albeit abandonment, of the former administration. We have been able to set in train the building of the Tabernacle Health Center, which had been given a resting place, if you will, in the basement of the daycare facility at Tabernacle. Now something grand, beautiful and spacious will be made available this year to all those who attend to the Tabernacle Health Center for care and attention. I want to say how pleased I am that in a region where cancers are rife and represent a great challenge in terms of non-communicable diseases, our government has provided the Cancer Facility Oncology Wing to assist and bring care to those who are suffering from this painful disease. I was equally pleased of the investment we have made in the hemodialysis machines at the JNF, and equally the mental health, how we have expended significant sums to bring a day treatment facility, open it at Limekiln, so that those who need that special support, the families who have been traumatized by having loved ones who had mental challenges and who are in want of appropriate care, can now have a greater degree of comfort. I want to thank Senator, who is our Deputy Speaker, Keela Byron Nisbet, for fielding what before Team Unity came into office was a void in the Parliament, an important void, because for all of the life of the administration before us, it stubbornly refused to fill the vacancy 5 years to fill an important vacancy of Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly in a Caribbean member state, St. Lucia to be exact, when the government was slow in appointing the Deputy Speaker. The leader of the opposition then, it was Anthony, decided that he would abandon the Parliament because the legislative agenda could be challenged for want of that vacancy not being filled. So it was a very important position. And indeed, in the functioning of the Parliament, we have come to appreciate that the Deputy Speaker is essential. So I want to thank Senator Byron Nisbet for her work in that regard. Our senior minister and Minister of Labour, Etal, is of course an important member of our team. And he has bring a calm and serenity to the industrial climate in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, for which we are glad. And indeed, I want to commend him and his team, because when we faced with the challenge of the closure of Lutron and just about 80 or so employees, it was the intervention of his ministry and the Department of Labor in particular that led to the best ever terminal benefits being paid to any category of workers being severed to come to the fore. But more than that, we are advised that Jaro Limited has in fact offered jobs to all workers at Lutron who are willing to take that opportunity. So indeed, the workers of Lutron have the best of two worlds. The best terminal package ever being paid in our country to any category of workers. and now they are guaranteed jobs at another entity. So we are satisfied and buoyed by that development. But equally, when we visited the industrial estate, we could not help but being impressed by the quality of work of an international standard that was being done by our employees here at Harrow, at Luton, at Jarrow, at Cajola Cristada, everywhere, and at the brewery. Ordinary sons and daughters who sometimes are not given the kind of appreciation they deserve were excelling in their performance and were allowing the country to become the largest exporter of merchandise products in the OECS and Barbados. And we are exporting, thanks to the quality of workers here, products that are important to the U.S. aerospace industry. We are exporting product to Europe and elsewhere. Many of them are known to many of our people here. And so we have to do a bit more as a manufacturing sector to get out the good news. Most importantly for me, as I think about the economy and its prospects, was that every employer, every entity that we visited spoke positively about their plant and the prospects for expansion. Jarrow, for example, is in an expansive mode, so expansive that he's taking on about 53 plus employees from Luton in Wadlow. The persons at Harrow indicated again that they had gone through significant expansion over the last year or two, and they too were satisfied that the future for their plant was going to be very bright. At the St. Kitts Brewery, which last year celebrated the landmark and historic 1 million cases of brewery product, they are anticipating that if things go as they ought to, very well, they're going to add a new product to their line, and they will increase by 50% the output from that plant. These are very positive stories about where the country is, where the level of confidence is in the state of affairs in our country. And this could not have happened without a very good industrial climate. And I thank the Minister of Labour for leading in this regard. And in several other areas, too numerous to mention. But he too, if he feels moved, will have the opportunity to give the country some snippets of the multitude of things that we have accomplished. Significant for me too, because this had been a challenge, had been the fact that the last administration left hundreds of people who had made application for severance without any payment. The fund had been hemorrhaged in the red. This administration recently took the sensible decision of engaging an actuary to advise us what we should do to put that severance fund into a more healthy position to preserve it for the benefit of all workers at the time of need. The Honorable Attorney General was in fact sworn in on the 18th of February 2015. So he has been with me and with the Cabinet for a long time. I want to thank him for his work as Attorney General, Minister of Justice and Technology. Indeed, our coming to Parliament, as regular as we have been doing, would not have been possible had not the parliamentary agenda been attended to by him and his staff. Indeed, it bears recognizing that last year we went to Parliament probably about 12, 13 times. In 2014, the former administration went to Parliament 3 times. 3 times in 2014. And we went there on 13 occasions. This reflects the health of the democracy, that we have brought back the Parliament to primacy in the context of the Westminster model, and have provided hope for the people again in terms of the vibrancy of our Westminster model of democracy. But equally, the Attorney General, as Minister of Technology, has been able to heighten the knowledge and interests of persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly our participation in the ICT space. St. Kitts and Nevis, I think it was in 2016, went to Botswana and was the only country, not the USA, not Canada, not New Zealand, not any advanced country. St. Kitts and Nevis won 2 awards for being exceptional in the field of ICT. So we are doing very well. And of that, of course, I am very pleased and satisfied. I have from time to time indicated that the country is fortunate to have had a team unity administration. And I feel that this is the best way forward for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So it will be team unity all the way when that moment of decision making comes again. From what I've said about the economy, from what I've said about the success stories of each member of the cabinet, none can deny that our team unity administration has been an exceptional performer in every arena. And of course, when you look at our manifesto for 2015 to 2020, and you just flip the cover page, almost everything here that we said we will do, which we highlighted as the key policy areas, we have done. We have done the work. $500 family support grant for household, earning $3,000 or less per month. Done deal. Promise made, promise delivered. And I shall make a statement on that later. The guarantee that the PEP programs, that programs like PEP will continue and be upgraded to step up so young people can have real opportunities for self-employment, appropriate training for permanent jobs, and earn a decent wage they can live at. This happened 2 years ago. We moved from PEP to STEP. Last couple of weeks, that particular program, the organizers were going throughout the country, engaging the workers in seminars and a host of topics of important interest. So we have kept our word. No VAT on food and medicine, educational supplies, and funeral expenses. We did that very quickly in 2015. Some may have forgotten. The creation of over 2,000 new jobs within our term of office. You look at the statistics from Social Security, and they reflect the largest number of persons at work that has taken place under Team Unity administration. The largest numbers of contributors to the scheme, epoxy of people at work, has taken place under a Team Unity administration. We say that we will make prompt payment of overdue 16 million gratuity still owed to former sugar workers. We did that. Over 2,000 former sugar workers or their families benefited, in contrast to about 968 when the former administration did the payout in 2005. A reduction, 16 million we paid out. A reduction, of course easy, a reduction in mortgage payments for NHC houses and lower student loan payments. This has happened. One of the earlier decisions we made, and perhaps the Minister of Housing was not as robust in the public awareness program, was to reduce the interest rate and mortgage facilities of the NHC. So those move from a high of about 9 and 11% in some instances to as low as 2% for those who are at the very basic minimum wage, and as high as 5%. So we slashed that almost 50% to make it easier for our people. And then Education Guarantee Fund to underwrite university education for people lacking in collateral. You look at the reports, this government has expended more than any government in the past in supporting tertiary education for our people. Indeed, in addition to that, we have used the Educational Foundation to provide support for persons. We receive financing from the CDB, some 30 million, and a significant portion of that is going to provide scholarship, partial and otherwise, to those of our citizens and residents who have an interest in technical and vocational education and training. That, Mr. Speaker, is where we are at. The fiscal house of the country is well in order. The economy has been growing year after year and growing above average in the region. You look at the last central bank report for the quarter, I think that would have been out in June, July. Again, it speaks well about the optimism in terms of the economic performance of the country. And if we were not doing well, the things that are happening at the cruise pier, at the airport, on our roads, at Old Road, couldn't be happening because the government would not have been able to acquire the resources. So again, my commendation to the country for their support, and pledge that as a team we will work to perform even better in our second term than we have done in our first term. Mr. Speaker, I want now to deal with three specific matters. One, marijuana or cannabis. The second one will be an update with the Poverty Alleviation Program. This is the $500 per month support which my administration introduced in December of 2018. And the third statement, Mr. Speaker, would be just to update the country regarding the imminence of the CARICOM Heads of Government meetings, which will take place next week, 26 and 27 of February. With regard to marijuana, this of course has been a very controversial topic. And in April 5th, 2017, the Cabinet announced that we were going to approach this controversial matter, as we have done with so many other matters, in a thoughtful and structured way. And in that regard, we set about to establish a commission, the National Marijuana Commission, whose job it was to consult with the public and inquire into the wide-ranging issues surrounding marijuana use in the Federation, and ultimately to provide recommendations to the government on the way forward. I am pleased to report that the Commission, which began its work in earnest on the 5th of October 2017, presented its report to the Office of the Prime Minister on or about January 10, 2019, some 15 months after. I think that is important. You had a commission set up to go through the length and breadth of the island of St. Kitts and the island of Nevis, consult, inform people, and harness their views so that we could make informed decision, not based on the whim and fancy of the moment, but on the basis of thoughtful analyses. That report was formally deliberated extensively by the Cabinet on Monday, the 18th of February in Nevis, where we met for a special session of the Federal Cabinet as part of the celebratory activities in commemoration of our 4th anniversary. The members of the Commission were Dr. Hazel Laws, Chief Medical Officer, and she was the chairperson. Mr. Andre Mitchell, he is Assistant Commissioner of Police, representing law enforcement. We had Dr. Garfield Alexander, President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Medical and Dental Association. There was the Reverend Canon P. Alistair Rollins, the Anglican parishes of St. Paul's, St. John's, St. Kitts, and of course, we had Samande Rasaya Reid, representative of the Rastafari community. We had Mrs. Karimu Byron Keynes, Director of the National Council on Drug Abuse Prevention. Mr. Charles Wilkin QC, former President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association. Michelle Delacadre Blake, Director, Counseling Unit, etc. Miss Kenisha Fleming, who represented the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association, Skanaipa. Mrs. Joan Brown, from the Ministry of Finance in Nevis. Dr. Julie Graves, former Associate Professor of Epidemiology, Ethics, and Behavioral Science from the UMHS University and St. Kitts. I want to thank these 11 commissioners for their diligence and commitment to the process. Of course, the commission had power to call any member, any entity, and to do the necessary consultations and work to allow it to bring a proper report to the Cabinet and by extension to the country. I want to say that the report that we have received, Government and St. Kitts Nevis, National Commission and Cannabis Commission report dated 10th January 2019, at Chapter 11, provides for the recommendations from the Commission. The report, of course, sets out the work of the Commission, its methodologies, and importantly, the recommendations of its members. Those recommendations have been considered by the Cabinet, and I am pleased today to advise that the Cabinet has accepted the unanimous recommendations of the Commission set out at paragraph A of Chapter 11 of the said report. And I want to read into the record what those recommendations were. It's important to note that there were some recommendations which all of the commissioners who had met and convened for that purpose agreed to. There were some for which there was no consensus, and those are classified under items B and C. In other words, recommendations on the B and C had various level of acceptance within the Commission, but there was no unanimity in relation to them. We have accepted these recommendations that have been put. 1, the blanket criminalization of cannabis or marijuana as per the Drugs Act has been overtaken by the passage of time and regional and international developments and should be amended appropriately. 2, the definitions in the Drugs Act relating to cannabis should be amended having regard to scientific developments since that act was passed in 1986. 3, the use of cannabis and its derivatives for medicinal and scientific purposes should be permitted under license and strict legislated regime. That is important. We are saying going forward, we are going to, as it were, free up the marijuana for use of a medicinal nature. And that is what has been proposed unanimously by the Commission. Now, the regime for the use of cannabis for medicinal purposes, and there are broadly 3 purposes for which its use have been proposed. Medicinal and scientific purposes, one broad ambit. Religious, another broad ambit, and recreational use. So those are the 3 broad ones. We have accepted wholeheartedly the recommendation. And this has come with the power of the science and the medicine, that it can assist persons when used in a regulated way. You want to emphasize that. When prescribed by appropriate persons knowledgeable in the science, that its use can be helpful, particularly in dealing with certain ailments, and in particular when those ailments could bring tremendous pains. And we will get into some of those later on. Indeed, he says, or they recommend, in order to pursue that particular purpose, there should be the establishment of a medicinal licensing authority to regulate the importation, local cultivation, and production. B, a requirement that 2 tiers of practitioners must complete a requisite amount of CME hours on marijuana. CME, continuing medical education. In other words, it's not, as we would say locally, every Tom, Dick, and Harry can get involved in this. The Commission is suggesting that practitioners will have to go through a requisite amount of medical education with respect to this. And we are in support of that particular recommendation. And also, of course, the same recommendation for training would apply to herbalists for non-prescribable marijuana products. C, in terms of that recommendation, a requirement that prescribable marijuana products must meet international labeling standards. A word of care and caution. These things have to meet the tests of WHO and WTO in terms of labeling, in terms of persons are able to determine what it is they are going to have as an intake in their body, so that the health of the person is not being compromised. So that is part of what will be required as we move to get to where the recommendation is taking us and is advising us. The inclusion of other components should be allowed only under advice from experts in the industry. The fifth substantial recommendation is that production and trade should be permitted on the license and a strict legislated regime of hemp and hemp products be observed. Then we look at recommendation 6, which was unanimously agreed. They said that the penalty for possession of less than 15 grams of cannabis should be reduced to a ticketable offense without a criminal record. Now the quantity is important. 15 grams, not 15 pounds, and not 15 ounces. That is what they are saying should be the allowable amount. And if you're caught with that small quantity, then for that, you get a ticketable offense and you have no criminal record. The inverse also applies. They are saying that if you get caught with more than 15 grams, then you will have a criminal record. And that will not meet the threshold for the ticketable offense. 7, the penalty for the growth of less than 5 plants per household should be reduced to a ticketable offense without a criminal record. Now 5 seem to be common across some of the jurisdictions that have passed this legislation. And in the Caribbean, only 3 countries. For all the noise we've been hearing, Jamaica was the first, Antigua, and most recently, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So they say 5 plants being allowable or less. The penalty for the growth of less than 5 plants per household would be reduced to a ticketable offense without a criminal record. And 8, the current regime for the rehabilitation of offenders should be amended to permit the court to expunge the criminal records of persons convicted in the past of possession of cannabis in quantities below the amount specified above, that is the 15 grams. So they're saying if you went to jail for 15 grams, that the government should move to try to pass law to allow for that to be expunged from the record. I think as it is now, expungement is not allowed for certain serious crimes, one of which would be crimes of a sexual nature, and that to do with guns. Now 8, the current regime, we read it before. 9, current health care services for the treatment of substance abuse should be substantially upgraded and increase the number of personnel trained in treatment and counseling of young persons and other vulnerable groups. So they are saying that, listen, there's a downside to this, and we have to prepare our social sector, in particular the health sector, to deal with the probability of substance abuse. And we have to then also enhance our counseling for young people and vulnerable groups.
Honourable Member, could you, for the benefit of all, repeat the recommendation related to the 5 plants? I think there's a
You want that repeated?
Oh, what exactly is the recommendation? I don't think it came. No, I don't think it came across.
I know you
clearly.
don't have 5 plants or any plants at all. Someone was saying that, but quickly,
yes.
Let's get back to the 5 plants. They're saying here, and this is recommendation 7, the penalty for the growth of less than 5 plants per household should be reduced to a ticketable offense without a criminal record. If you look at the Antigua legislation, they allow you to plant a maximum of 5 plants. okay, and you are not sanctioned, or at least if you are in a minimal way, you would be. So 5 plants were allowed in the Antigua legislation. I think a similar quantum was provided for in St. Vincent, if I'm not mistaken. So the commissioners basically is making a recommendation akin to what pertain in those particular pieces of legislation. 10, a massive public messaging program should be created prior to any changes in the law, and continuing thereafter, informing the public of the benefits and risks and potential harm to young persons regarding the use of cannabis. In other words, they are saying that they don't want everybody now suddenly figure they need to get a high, a boost from this substance, that they are dangerous and they are risks, and at least the science seem to have now settled that for children between the age up to 24 years, the consistent and regular use of marijuana is dangerous for their own neurological or brain development. And so the protection of the children will be paramount for the government going forward, even as we decriminalize its use for certain specific purposes. We cannot allow the future, the children who are our future, to be compromised by the use of this in ways that are not healthy for their development. They said that we need an education program adapted for use in our schools. And this, of course, follows naturally because young people perhaps will be among those sectors or those groups within the society most likely may be excited enough to want to try this. And 12, the smoking and use of cannabis in public places should remain a criminal offense and attract substantial penalties. This is important. What the commissioners are saying is that when you walk down 4th Street, which is a public space, perhaps when you're going to a restaurant, that's a public space. Certainly, when you go to the court, when you come to government buildings, you're not going to be allowed to smoke and use cannabis. That will be a criminal offense, and they are recommending that there should be substantial penalties. In other words, you conduct yourself circumspectly in the privacy of your home or some other facility where there is restricted access. But we don't want people coming to work, going to church, and anybody blowing the spliff in the face. We're not going to tolerate that. Then 13, offenses and penalties for driving under the influence of cannabis should be introduced. Again, this is like driving under influence of alcohol. They're saying that you have to bring now a parallel bit of legislation to penalize persons who would want to get on high and be driving on our highways and our roads, creating danger to our people. So they seem to have been judicious and sensible in their recommendations, and the cabinet has taken note of them, and we have determined that given the unanimity of the recommendation, we will continue to work to flesh out these recommendations to lead to implementation after the massive public messaging program, which the commissioners recommend should take place before any changes in the law. In addition, the cabinet is persuaded that the use and possession and sale of marijuana to persons under the age of 18 should be strictly prohibited. We want to protect the children. And so, in that regard, that is what we are looking at, and this is consistent with the thrust of the recommendations that we protect the vulnerable group. As I said before, this recommendation that you have a threshold for young people is consistent with the science that regular intake, particularly smoking of marijuana by young persons, would be inimical to their good health. Mr. Speaker, the acceptance of these recommendations put forward unanimously by the National Marijuana Commission portends some fundamental changes to existing laws in St. Kitts and Nevis, which my cabinet will have to consider carefully and consult further on. The Commission could not agree, I repeat, the Commission could not agree that cannabis should be legalized for religious purposes or that it should be legalized for recreational purposes. The Cabinet considers, therefore, that a phased approach is advisable, taking the unanimous recommendations of the Commission as our first steps, and thereafter considering the other areas in which unanimity could not be achieved, and that would be a prudent approach to take. So we start with the consensus. We start where there is no disagreement. We work on those recommendations, and we will give consideration to the next steps over which there were no consensus. So we move in a phased way with respect to this particular matter. So in practical terms then, the Cabinet will still have to consult further with the Commissioners asked to review the laws. The Commissioners asked that we put a massive public messaging program together. So all these things will have to be done as we move to, as it were, free up the herb for purposes of medicinal use under regulated circumstances. At the same time, it means that those found with under 15 grams of cannabis or growing less than 5 plants would receive ticketable offenses only. And of course, their record, their criminal record, will not reflect adversely with respect to these. Those currently in prison on convictions for small amounts, and the small amount that is recommended is 15 grams, should have their sentences reviewed, and anyone convicted for such small amounts would have their conviction record appropriately cleared up. And of course, we have said, and the commissioners have said, that we need to protect the children. We are looking at the age of majorities, 18, and we are thinking that that perhaps would be an appropriate age in which we would want to provide the threshold. In closing then on this particular matter, I would want to say that the government has listened, and this has been a hallmark of this government. We don't get carried away by the huff and the puff of the moment, that we believe that significant matters of public concern deserve to have a studied approach, and that we ought appropriately to do the necessary research and consultation to help us give rise to new policy frames. And we have done this. We believe that the approach which has been, or the recommendations which have come 15 months after the Commission had started its work and involved in a sweeping consultation across the country. Additionally, engage in public surveys regarding the use of this substance in St. Kitts and Nevis. Engage in focus group studies. That methodology has provided a very good frame on which we could, as it were, place reliance upon the work. So, on behalf of the country, I want to thank the Chair of the National Cannabis Commission, Dr. Hazel Laws, all the members of the team, all who made presentation to the Commission, all who participated in the surveys and in the focus group work. I want to commend the quality of their final report, which has established important signposts and has given great guidance to my government on the way forward. The statement I wish to make with regard to the CARICOM is a very brief one. Mr. Speaker, next week, as I said earlier, on February 26 and 27, St. Kitts and Nevis will host the 30th 3-0 intersessional meeting of CARICOM heads, and this will take place at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort and Royal Beach Casino. In addition to that main event, several other meetings of a regional and international nature will take place in the margins of the intersessional gathering. We are expecting on the 25th of February that there will be a caucus of OECS heads. We are expecting that the Secretary General of UNTAD, which is the United Nations main body dealing with trade, investment, and development, will have an audience with CARICOM heads. UNTAD has 195 member states. There will be several signing ceremonies taking place in the margins of the heads, some with respect to matters of health and some with respect to financing for small businesses. The heads will engage members of the regional private sector, especially on the subject to do with regional transportation. The planning committee for this auspicious meeting is headed by Permanent Secretary Kebas in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I want to commend her studied leadership. Preparations have advanced to a satisfactory level, and so I want to commend the Secretariat and the local organizing committee for the excellent efforts in advancing this particular meeting to a place that we can feel assured that all will go well. To date, we have over 150 delegates who have registered across 15 member states and associate member states. And we are expecting at least 8 international and regional organizations to be at that special meeting. It is customary that for heads of government meetings, we allow one guest. And in this regard, the special guest at this meeting is the President of Estonia, His Excellency Kersti Kaljulaid. Many diplomatic representatives also take the opportunity to meet with heads, and already Foreign Affairs has had indication that His Excellency John Pilbeam, the High Commissioner of Australia, and His Excellency Anton Ojala, the High Commissioner of New Zealand, will be here. We of course expect that the warm hospitality of our people will bring many of these visitors back to our shores in the not too distant future, perhaps even before the music festival. The final statement I will make relates to our poverty alleviation program. Mr. Speaker, the country is aware, our citizens and residents are well aware of this $500 per month poverty alleviation program. This is an important promise, nay, commitment of the Team Unity government, and we have done great so far to move this program along as part of a comprehensive effort to reduce and eventually eradicate abject poverty in our federation. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2018, this program was launched at the convenient location of Independence Square in the full view of all and in the sunshine of transparency that we have brought to the government. So far, over $3.1 million have been dispersed, have been paid out, if you will, to over 3,500 beneficiaries. Some cases are being reviewed to determine eligibility in light of self-reported information or new information brought to the departments. Mr. Speaker, this program, in our view, has affirmed that we are a virtuous people. Several of the beneficiaries, the 3,500 who have received checks so far, and there are some checks still pending, have reported to the departments such as Social Services, the Accountant General, or Sustainable Development that their circumstances have changed and they could not in good conscience accept further payouts. So this is a very good thing, where they came voluntarily, and I want to commend all such persons who are fair and reasonable. Some of them have found jobs since they had first applied for the assistance, and they were fortunate, we are told, to have received jobs that put their household income above the threshold of $3,000 per month. So this is a good thing that they, being honest, make a determination. I applied when I was unemployed. I have now found a good job, and I would not deny somebody more deserving than myself the opportunity. So I commend them. We have some of them who have reported back that they have gone overseas. Some of them have received improved immigration status in the US of A. And they have been honest enough to say, strike us off the list, we are no longer here. Hopefully when they come back, they will no longer need to go back on the list. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, there have been cases where there have been several persons in the same household who have applied. And that information had only come to the knowledge of the departments processing these checks, processing these applications subsequent to the payments. And as that information is passed to the relevant authorities, they do the necessary investigations to reconcile with truth. And so where there have been multiple applications coming from a single household, those checks have been put on pause so that only one party, one person from the household should apply. That is what was said, and that is what we are sticking to for the moment. Maybe as the months go on and we do a more comprehensive review, there may be particular circumstances which may come to the fore, which will require a revisit of the limit of only one person. So again, I want to commend the Social Services Department, the Department of Sustainable Development in particular, the Department of Statistics that has been providing the leadership with respect to this, and of course, our Accountant General Department. The Accountant General, a few days ago, submitted the following courses of action for consideration with respect to the disbursement of payments under the Poverty Alleviation Program. And we have adopted them. They are non-controversial. The department says that it would recommend the collection of personal banking information, including the name of the bank and the account number from all beneficiaries, either when they go to register or when they come to collect their check. And the reason for that is that until we get the debit card up and functioning, we would want to make electronic funds transfer to the bank account, because that is a safer way, and that would allow or minimize the need for persons having always to make a special time to go and to collect. So those who are in receipt, and we have had 2 payouts for December and January, those and several persons, in fact thousands, have already gone and have given their banking information, account number, etc., so that for future, the Treasury will send electronically their payments to the bank, and there will be no need for them to come to a physical place, at least government, to collect. There is the further recommendation that we approve fixed dates for the payment of the monthly benefits. So for the February payment, it is recommended that on Thursday, the 28th of February, the Treasury will make payments to all who have brought their banking information to the Treasury, to Sustainable Development, to Social Services, and that data is processed. And we have thousands of persons who have already provided that. Those persons, your monies will be going to the bank you have indicated on the Thursday, the 28th of February, 2019. Now, there are some persons who forget their bank account number, not in any relationship with the bank, and all are welcome to participate. For those persons, on Saturday, the 2nd of March, your checks will be distributed from the Inland Revenue Department. I want to repeat that. The payments for the Poverty Alleviation Program for February will be made on the 28th of February, that's a Thursday. Those monies will be going directly to the account numbers that had been given by the applicants as the source to which they require their $500 be paid. And of course, you could go to the bank anytime thereafter or use your ATM card and access your funds. Those who are yet to provide banking information, or they prefer to hold their check in their hand, we still will accommodate you. And so on the 2nd of March 2019, those payments will take place at the Inland Revenue from 8:30 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. That is the same place you would have gone recently to collect on a Saturday. In Nevis, similar types of arrangements are to be put in place. 28 February 2019, electronic transfer to your account at your bank of choice those who would wish to collect cash or those who have not yet provided banking information, a physical payout will be made on the 2nd of March, which is a Saturday. This allows those who are up in the factories or in any workplace who would otherwise have a difficulty in being released from work during Monday to Friday. So that is why we have chosen that particular day. And we have the days proposed for March, but I won't overload in terms of giving that information. We want to suggest that when you go to Inland Revenue Department and the Bureau on the 2nd of March 2019, that you should take your banking information if you have not already done so. And if you now prefer to have your money sent directly to your bank account, the persons there will be accommodating you. I am advised that there are still some incongruence with respect to the names, and that has delayed certain payments. So we are asking that persons bring proper IDs at each point of the system. You can have Margaret spelled several ways, for example. You can have Nisbet, N-I-S-B-E-T, N-I-S-B-I-T. Sometimes they add a double T, sometimes they add a double T and an E. So there are many permutations. We therefore want for you to bring your official ID, because then this makes the processing easier. And by the time we are ready for the debit card, all these information, these assets, have to be clean and ready to go. So that is the only reason why we are asking for the official IDs to help accompany, to accompany you as you access the system. Let me end on a note of gratitude, Mr. Speaker, to all those who are helping us in the implementation of this program. The Accountant General and his staff, who are mobilized even on a Saturday to ensure that those in need receive the support promised by the government. I want to say thank you. To Mrs. Gail Phillip, our Senior Director of Statistics in the Ministry of Sustainable, who, with her hard-working team, and to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Services, all of whom collaborated to make a reality the implementation of our poverty assistance, which involved over 4,000 applicants. That is a lot of persons. A lot of people have been impacted immensely by this policy initiative, for which we say to God be the glory. May it please the Honorable House, sir.